I am Precious Mzea Sakaleji. Welcome to Camnet TV Main News. The headlines. 22-year-old male MUMBWA resident accuses the police of shooting him during an illegal mining raid. Millers Association of Zambia impressed with the maize flour price. LUSAKA runs out of kerosene as commodity price triples. And in international news, Ugandan opposition leader KIZZA BESIGYE denied bail for leading inflation protest. And in sports, Zambia Rugby 7S captain Israel KALUMBA confidence of winning medals at the Commonwealth Games. Join me with the details after this commercial.
On Monday, 13th June 2022, on National Matters, join Pastor Moses Chiluba as he hosts Economic Front President, Mr. Winter Kavimba.
Power is only sour when it is in the hands of somebody else. When it is transferred into your hands, it becomes sweet, and all the wrongs that you saw with other people become right because now you are in power. So to attribute the increase, the rapid increase now, or the continued increase in commodity prices to the war in Ukraine is really not being truthful. Again, that is one thing that the UPND government has failed to own up.
Topic of discussion: where has Zambia gone wrong?
Invite others to participate through phoning on Skype, Zoom, WhatsApp and text messages. On TSTV channel 274, GoTV channel 98 and Topstar channel 106. Make a date with us. Camnet TV, not just another channel.
And other news in detail. Police in Lusaka have apprehended 2 suspects for being in possession of suspected human scar and teeth. Police spokesperson Rehamonga has named the suspects as a 45-year-old Vosta Kapila and 41-year-old Victor Nyambe, both of Minwood Ndeke in Lusaka. Mr. Hamonga says police officers had earlier received information that the suspects had a human scar being kept behind their house, which prompted the police to swing into action. The police spokesperson says it is alleged that the suspects picked the suspected human scar and teeth from Kalyanji area in Chisamba district, where they went to fetch firewood. Police have since opened an inquiry file while the 2 suspects are in police custody. Some Lusaka's Chilenje township residents have complained that the price of kerosene has tripled on the black market owing to the shortage of the commodity at filling stations. A kerosene trader, Lilian Chitangwa, explains that a 5-liter of kerosene is fetching between 200 and 300 kwacha on the black market against the normal pricing of 75 kwacha. She says business has become hard in the last 5 months and has appealed to the relevant authorities to intervene in the matter. Meanwhile, a check at some filling stations in Lusaka found that the last stocked kerosene 6 months ago.
It is globally estimated that over 500 million households still use fuels, particularly kerosene, commonly known as paraffin, for lighting in the absence of electricity, as a clean alternative to solid fuels and for cooking. Despite the importance of the commodity, a check by Camnet News has revealed that the commodity is scarce on the market. The traders of the commodity talked to explained that it has been over 4 months since paraffin was readily available on the market, citing that they are being overpriced on the black market in order to purchase the commodity.
It is a lot because it's hard for us to find it, and it's very used to. A 5-liter we get it at 75, close to 80 kwacha when we go to a filling station. But once we go somewhere else, to those people that order in drums, they will say 200.
Sometimes mufuna kushoka kuvoshoka kushokako mukatirapo parafina msanga bapya but yapa ya dula si unika mpaka wamene vali nayo parafini kavaichosa kutikaya pakokola ndawa ikadobwera muboma nishparafini namba kuvuta kumande yapo hey bantu, they are not buying it because long population site kwa 300 ya bwerera pants katima order 900 money.
A check at some filling station by Camnet News indicated that the commodity has not been on the market for over 8 months. The filling station attendants explained to this reporter that the commodity is indeed scarce. Nelson Zulu for Camnet News, Lusaka.
The Drug Enforcement Commission DEC has recorded, warned and cautioned statement from Chawama Constituency Area Member of Parliament Tasila Lungu and her husband Patrick Mwanza in connection of being in possession of property reasonably suspected to be proceeds of crime. And speaking shortly after the interrogation, counsel to the duo Makebi Zulu says his clients are innocent until proven guilty. Meanwhile, the lawmaker says the move by the law enforcement agency is just a distraction to get her away from attending to national matters.
Firstly, our client was gave a statement. At the end of the statement, what was written is a sibling's name. She was supposed to sign as Chia Sorongo. Of course, we refused, and there was an amendment to reflect her name, and we wondered whether it's something that's going against the family. She was given a declaration form to fill in, and we said we can't fill in this declaration form because we know the rights that she has. And already they preferred the charge. They wanted her to give them information, they wanted her to give them documents to be used against her, and they preferred the charge against her in that regard. The husband was also interviewed and has also been warned and cautioned on the same charges, wondering whether it's a fight against the family or against corruption. But so far, we are confident that we are standing on firm ground. Our clients are innocent of everything that they are alleging. As a matter of fact, we are disappointed that they are not getting down to investigate matters as they ought to. They are not to get information from our clients. They are the state. They know where to get the information as regards properties. Minister of Lands is theirs. They know who owns the state. So they should be able to come up with better information in the next time that they decide to charge anyone or indeed investigate anyone.
We have important national issues to attend to, but the day has been wasted. We had a workshop this morning. We didn't attend the workshop this morning. And as you can see, there's nothing going on here. It's just to distract and get us away from important national matters.
Petaoka Central Member of Parliament Emmanuel Banda has maintained that Constituency Development Fund guidelines should be amended to accommodate tertiary institutions. Mr. Banda has told Camnet News that the only solution to ensure that everyone benefits from the CDF is to revise the guidelines. He says despite the funds being dispersed 3 months ago, no one has accessed the funds due to long process attached to the program. And Chairman North Member of Parliament Yotam Chalo has advised parliamentarians to serve the interest of the electorates and bury other interests in order to develop the nation by standing for what is right.
The question is that this House urges the government to urgently amend the 2022 Constituency Development Fund guidelines to, among others, expand the utilization of the funds to tertiary education. The ayes 54, the noes 79, no abstention. The question is in the negative.
Wednesday, 15th June 2022, the National Assembly rejected the motion raised by Opposition Patriotic Front Member of Parliament for Chairman North Yotam Mutayatalo to consider reviewing the 2022 CDF guidelines in order to utilize CDF funds even for tertiary institutions. However, Petaoka Central Member of Parliament Emmanuel Jeje Banda has firmly maintained that the CDF guidelines should be amended if development is to take center stage. He says the process for accessing CDF is long. As such, people in the area have not accessed the funds.
Too long. We need to shorten the process. So I'm sure it's two different things. So you should understand me, I'm still asking that we should amend the act because the process is too long. You can imagine the stages are, first stage, it's a Ward Development Committee. When they approve, it goes to CDF, from CDF committee. From CDF committee, it goes to the minister. When the minister approves, it goes again back to the council. From council, they send the papers to the province. From province, they send them to finance, ST. From finance, it goes to Attorney General. From Attorney General, it goes to ZPPA. So with that long process, you find that when the process is done, you find that the beneficiary now for this CDF, the people who benefit a lot, it's the banks.
And Chama North Member of Parliament Yota Mutayachalo stands disappointed that the motion he raised failed.
I thought that they can fall back on the CDF if at all you have excess funds. That was the purpose of that motion. And I also even consulted actually from the UPND. And they had said that that was a progressive motion. But I was shocked that the executive decided to shoot it down. That well-intended actually motion.
However, Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, Gary Nkombo, is expected to issue a ministerial statement next week. Nelson Zulu, for Camnet News, Lusaka.
Care for Nature Zambia Executive Director Nsama Kent has challenged policymakers and stakeholders to actively participate in tackling climate change, which mostly affects children. Speaking at the launch of the National Children's Climate Action Project in Lusaka Thursday, Mrs. Keynes says children have become vulnerable to the effects of climate change and says there is need to engage them in the fight against climate change. Meanwhile, Save the Children Zambia Acting Country Director Ani Habani says it will prioritize looking at climate change impact on children's rights and well-being. And Ministry of Community Development Chief Child Development Officer Changano Ngoyi says the government is aware of the child survival and child development rights and government is accountable to ensure that the rights of children are protected.
Zambia has joined the African continent in commemorating the African Child's Day, which falls on 16th of June each year. The day was, however, full of surprises as Care for Nature Zambia, in collaboration with Zambia Climate Change Network, have launched a project dubbed Climate Action, aimed at empowering children to act against climate change and advocate for improved access to nutrition and healthcare services. While climate change is taking a center stage on the environment, children who barely contribute to climate change have become the victims, which ends up affecting their lives permanently.
Myself and my friends over there, we are climate champions. We call ourselves climate champions because we advocate for climate change. We want it to end.
Care for Nature Zambia Executive Director Nsama Keynes says it is high time that children were given a voice in the fight against climate change.
They are not involved in mining. They are not involved in driving the vehicles that are producing the carbon, but they are affected. They are the ones who have the greatest risk of inheriting a future which has got climate effects. And as Care for Nature Zambia, we said it's time for us to prepare the children.
The project, which is being supported by Save the Children under the CEDA Driving Sustainable Change for Children's Right project, was first started in Mansa district of Lapula province but will now be rolled out to other parts of the country. Save the Children Zambia Acting Country Director Ani Haban says our institution will continue to support the project in order to ensure the well-being of children amid this climate change.
Pulled out of school straight away when there's a drought. We know then floods come, the same thing. It had impacts on children's nutritional opportunities, and we also see longer, more systemic impact.
Meanwhile, Ministry of Community Development Chief Child Development Officer Changano Ngai says the government should be held accountable in protecting the well-being of children.
Going to school, how safe are our children in the schools? Before the teachers, before the boarding classmates, all the streets that they go, all that the government is aware and taking action towards that.
For these children, preventing climate change now becomes their key priority.
In class, I can concentrate because of the hotness. Now I understand. Do you understand?
Yes, we understand.
What do you understand?
Now I understand. This called coughing, cold fever, and sneezing. Oh, I understand. Achoo! Please excuse me, not even forgetting this COVID-19. Do you understand?
Yes, we understand.
Prudence Chota, reporting for Camnet TV News.
In other news, Zambia has emphasized the need for local voices to be amplified at global stage in addressing climate change issues. Speaking during a traditional leaders climate action meeting in Lusaka, HIVO's Southern Africa Regional Director Kennedy Mugoshi says local people's voices have continued to be sidelined in the decision-making process, yet they are the ones who are affected by climate change. Mr. Mugoshi adds that climate change is a global problem that requires a global approach and that there is need to incorporate the voices of traditional leaders. Meanwhile, His Royal Highness Chief Mbunda of Rufunsa District says he has banned the cutting down of trees in his chiefdom in an effort to address climate change.
Zambia, just like many other African countries, continue to play her part in mitigating issues of climate change by working in collaboration with different stakeholders that have regard for the environment. Like many countries across the globe, Zambia has not been spared by the adverse impact of climate change. Thursday, the 16th of June 2022, HIVOS Zambia held a traditional leaders climate action meeting in Lusaka, whose discussion was centered around the need to amplify local voices on climate change issues. The organization regional director says climate change continues to be a global problem that requires participation of locals.
The authorities are trying their best, but what we are witnessing is that they have to balance different competing needs. There is pressure from industrialists, for instance, they need to create jobs and the like. But we are saying to the authorities, as they balance the competing needs, they need to do that in a sustainable manner. Whether they have to produce, they have to invest in production, in industries, in creating jobs, make sure that green economy is part of that agenda. And also, as Yvos, we are saying, let them ensure that local voices are consulted in policy making and in solutions that are done. We call it a co-creation of solutions.
Meanwhile, His Royal Highness Chief Wunda of the Soli-speaking people of Rufunsa District says climate change has remained a global threat, hence the need for a collaborated effort in addressing it.
We are talking of maintaining the ecosystem. We are talking of reducing the deforestation. But they are the officers that are supposed to help us. But they are the people that are issuing out the permit to those people that are deforesting, going into serious deforestation and leaving the land bare. There's need for even this meeting that you've called. It's a very good meeting. But there was need for forest department officers to be here so that they also hear what we are talking about, and we ask them the questions, why do they give permits when, as we are saying, don't give permits? So this meeting is a good meeting, but I would say it is half-baked meeting because the people that are supposed to help protect the environment are not there. So let's try to look into that next time. We need to call everyone and the serious government departments.
Miriam Kaimba, reporting for Camnet TV News.
The Millers Association of Zambia President Andrew Chintala has described the Food Reserve Agency current announced crop marketing season price for maize, soybeans and paddy rice as fair and beneficial to the farmers. Mr. Chintala, who spoke shortly after the agency announced the price, says the slight increase will boost local maize production, adding that the country is likely to record a reduction in prices of mealie meal on the market. And FRA Board Chairperson Kelvin Havenzia has announced that the agency will be buying 50-kilogram bag of white maize at 160 kwacha from the previous 150 kwacha, while a 50-kilogram bag of soya beans will be fetching at 550 kwacha from the previous 500 kwacha, and that a 40-kilogram bag of paddy rice will be fetching for 200 kwacha.
The Food Reserve Agency has Thursday, 16th June 2022, announced an increase in the purchase of some crops like maize from 150 kwacha in 2021 to 160 kwacha in the 2022 crop marketing season. Reacting to this development, some stakeholders have echoed different sentiments on the matter, with the opposition political party, Leadership Movement, Media Director Tatila saying that the increment is a mockery to farmers who are expecting the president to do more, considering that he too is a farmer and understands the challenges that most farmers face. Mr. Tatila says the 160 kwacha increment on maize is not sustainable, especially that not all farmers are on FISP program.
To express our disappointment following the announcement of food reserve agents on the price of white maize and soya beans. First and foremost, we expected a better price and a fair price from the food reserve agents so that our farmers, our small-scale farmers, feel empowered.
Meanwhile, the Millers Association President Andrew Chintala has described the increment as fair, saying that it will boost the local production of maize in the country, adding that if properly utilized, this may contribute to the reduction of mealie meal prices in the country, a commodity which is currently expensive on the market.
I think our quick reaction to that is that the price that FRA has announced is quite a fairly good price for our millers, for our farmers, considering that I think there's been an outcry in terms of the cost of production of maize in the country as a result of the high cost of inputs going into maize production. Obviously, this is a good price, not only to the farmers but also to the consumers. You are aware that the millers have been buying maize for 4,000 kwacha a metric ton, which translates to about 200 kwacha, a 50 kilogram bag of maize. Now the price has dropped to 160. Clearly that is an indication that we expect to see a downward trend.
The Food Reserve Agency had Thursday announced an increase in the purchasing price of some crops from 150 kwacha to 160 kwacha per 50 kg bag of white maize. Soya beans will be selling at 550 kwacha from 500 that was in 2021, and paddy rice will be selling at 200 kwacha from 195 previously.
The agency intends to purchase 3 commodities as follows: white maize, at least 170,000 metric tons. B, soybean, 1,500 metric tons. C, paddy rice, 1,000 metric tons. The agency shall operate 600 satellite depots in all districts. We shall operate 600 satellite depots in all our districts. Farmers shall be paid through designated banks upon presentation of appropriate documentation. I think we do have some money. We are hoping that immediately we start buying the food reserve agents, we pay farmers.
Messi Chonika reporting for Camnet TV News in Lusaka.
Camco Equipment Zambia Limited, a company that deals in the sale of generators and other equipments, has sued embattled Kabushi Member of Parliament in the Lusaka High Court, demanding a payment of more than 66,000 kwacha as an outstanding balance for the generator he purchased and later donated to a clinic in Ndola. According to a statement of claim filed before court, Mr. Lusambo is alleged to have entered into a credit sale agreement with Camco Equipment for a purchase of a 55 kilovolts ampere generator, and the outstanding balance was in the sum of 91,844 kwacha 55 ngwe and was to be settled within a period of 14 days from 29th October 2019. The plaintiff tells the High Court that Mr. Lusambo only deposited a sum of 50,000 kwacha and has neglected, failed and refused to settle the outstanding balance despite having taken possession of the generator and despite having donated the same to a clinic in Ndola. Camco Equipment now wants an order for the immediate payment of the said balance. You're watching Camnet TV Main News. We take our first set of commercials. We'll be back with more after this.
I've always been passionate about moving forward as fast as I could. Even as a child, all I ever wanted was to take first place at everything I put work towards. Whether I'm on the track or in the lecture room, my goal is to come out on top.
Growing up, we were always called Mafasho. You could say this paved the way for who we would become. We owe our success to our understanding of the power of storytelling, understanding what people connect to in order to give them what they desire.
We have always been passionate about people and honoring their stories. Our learning experience gave us the knowledge to channel our creativity into a business.
In order to start any successful journey, we must have a place to start. Even if that means we keep our mental image in focus, as we become the inevitable solution to society's inevitable problems.
Which is why we all start our journey here.
Team, the trajectory of the business looks very positive, and it looks like we'll be able to launch the ministry.
There's so much data.
Mom?
Yes, baby?
It says here, global warming and climate change is caused by the pollution from careless activities of human beings.
Wow!
Son, do you know I can turn my phone into a TV remote?
How's that possible?
It's so easy. Check this out.
Be smart, be fast with mega data from Zamtel. Get your 15 GB mobile data for only 100 kwacha, 30 GB mobile data for only 200 kwacha, and your 70 GB LTE data bundle with free Netflix, YouTube, Facebook, and WhatsApp. Visit our Facebook page, website, or service centers countrywide for more information. Zamtel, your digital lifestyle partner.
Welcome back. We'll continue with the rest of the news. A governance activist, Jose Kunda, says there is need for Mine Minister Paul Kabuswe to render a thorough and comprehensive statement on the safety of the Black Mountain in Kitwe on the Copper Belt. Commenting on a directive issued by the Speaker of the National Assembly, Nelly Muti, in Parliament Wednesday, Mr. Kunda says his expectation is for the minister to explain to the nation the precautions and that the ministry is putting in place to ensure that there is no deaths recorded and the safety of youths operating at the Black Mountain is guaranteed. Madam Muti directed that Minister Kabuswe should next week Friday render a ministerial statement explaining the measures being taken to ensure that there is balance between the economic activists and the Black Mountain and the safety of those operating the mine.
Despite empowering and creating jobs for many Zambian youths, the Black Mountain in Kitwe and the Copper Belt is seemingly posing to be a danger, as over the past few weeks, reports on rising deaths have been reported. Different stakeholders have continued to echo their concern over the matter with regard to the safety of those operating at the site. On Wednesday, the 15th of June 2022, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Nelly Muti, directed Mines Minister Paul Kabuswe to render a ministerial statement next week Friday, explaining on the measures being taken to ensure that there is a balance between the economic activities at the Black Mountain and the safety of those operating. This was after Mpika Central Constituency Member of Parliament raised a matter of urgent public importance.
Indeed, there's been some concern on the happenings at the Black Mountain. I am aware that that matter has been dealt with before this Honourable House. It has been debated, but in view of the rising number of deaths that have occurred, I think it is important for the Minister of Mines to come to this House and inform the House, and through this House, the members of the public, what measures are being taken to ensure that life is going to be preserved at the Black Mountain as it continues to operate.
And governance activist Joseph Kikunda says his expectation is for the minister to render a thorough and comprehensive statement that will give a clear direction on the safety of the people and a lasting solution.
Kabuswe, the Minister of Mines, presents a report before Parliament on the mining of the Black Mountain in Kitwe. We expect his report to be thorough and comprehensive. In fact, he needs to address 4 outstanding or cardinal issues. Among them, we would like him to come out clearly on the ownership of the mine. Who owns the Black Mountain? The second aspect we would like the minister to explain is the safety of our people. What precautions are put in place to safeguard the well-being of the youths who are involved, because we are losing lives every time.
Miriam Kaimba reporting for Camnet TV News.
Government has with immediate effect constituted a 5-member mining appeals tribunal whose role is, among other things, to inquire into, make amends and decisions in any dispute relating to exploration, gold panning or mining under the Ministry of Mines and Minerals Development Act. In a statement made available to the media by Ministry of Mines and Minerals Development Public Relations Officer Lucy Shawa, the appointments of the members is in accordance with Section 9(8) of the Mines and Minerals Development Act No. 11 of 2015. And Mines Minister Paul Kabuswe has named the newly appointed MAT member as Msenga Andrew Musukwa, who has been appointed as chairperson, and 3 members, namely Pasma Hamfua, George Katuta Chibuye, and Willis Muhanga, with the fifth yet to be announced. Mr. Kabuswe has since congratulated the new members and has urged them to offer service to the nation to enable the mining sector thrive. Tourism Permanent Secretary Evans Luhanga says his ministry needs complementary support to effectively combat wildlife crimes in the country. Speaking when he closed the British Army operation Code 9, which saw 69 combined forces graduate at Shunga Training School Thursday, the PS said the Department of National Parks has a deficit of about 6,000 wildlife officers if it is to manage the huge wildlife estate effectively. Meanwhile, British High Commissioner to Zambia Nicholas Woolley says Britain and Zambia have enjoyed the cordial relationship built over the years. Speaking in a speech read on his behalf by Group Captain for the British Army Andrew Bastable, said Mr. Woolley, there has been a fresh focus on developing Zambian instructors as reflected by the training program.
Morning, sir.
Livingstone government has turned up the heat on anti-poaching by, among other things, activating a highly trained and specialized multidisciplinary anti-poaching task force to deal with would-be offenders. As you can see, the joint operation has the Zambia Air Force as well, so we can do those surveillance by air to ensure that you can't hide and we can smoke you out.
It's a particular honour for the British to be contributing towards countering the illegal wildlife trade, and the UK is incredibly committed to this worthy cause. For us, Operation Cordage represents a cross-government effort, funded, as I've mentioned, by DEFRA, delivered by the Ministry of Defence through the British Army, and supported by the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office in the British High Commission. Our goal here is that the training delivered, the skills exchanged over the last few months has not only benefited the students, but also been rewarding and fulfilling for our instructors too. And I believe that both of us have benefited massively from this enduring partnership.
The defense personnel graduating today have great military skills and equipment which will assist the Department of National Parks and Wildlife in mitigating the poaching which is on the increase in the country. The National Anti-Poaching Task Force so far has 340 personnel trained by the British Military Counter-Poaching Training Team.
In other news, some Lusaka youths have attributed the rise in the number of HIV and AIDS infections among fellow adolescents to peer pressure and the love for money. Speaking in an interview with Camnet News, Rhoda Banda says adolescents, especially in universities and colleges, want to live a luxurious life and have ended up sleeping with different men to sustain themselves. And Zambia Medical Association President Dr. Crispin Moyo says adolescents need more survival skills to be taught in order to curb the increase in the number of HIV infections.
Adolescents in Zambia currently take up more than half of the total population. However, many young people in the country are facing many challenges in line with sexually transmitted diseases, teenage pregnancies, to mention a few. Wednesday, 15th June 2022, saw some civil society organizations make submissions to Parliament over what should be included in the 8th National Development Plan from 2022 to 2026, in line with healthcare, nutrition, education services for the young people. In his presentation at Parliament, Southern African AIDS Dissemination Service, SAFAIDS Executive Director Crispin Chomba said Lusaka province recorded about 53,000 new infections, and the infections were among the adolescents. Camnet News caught up with some Lusaka youths who tell this reporter that the increase is due to peer pressure and the need to maintain social status.
As if because information is being given, we have many youth-friendly spaces, but I feel as if maybe it's due to ignorance and maybe they are peer pressured by their friends. So with the universities, young girls tend to have adults dating with adults, so that they should maybe find money, poverty, because it's one of the reasons.
Meanwhile, Zambia Medical Association President Crispin Moyo urges relevant authorities to empower adolescents with survival skills to reduce the number of young people resulting to prostitution as a source of income.
But teaching our young people and young adults comprehensive sexuality education to ensure that they are aware of what they can do to protect themselves. Second, we can also emphasize on giving our young people life skills, survival skills. How can they survive in this harsh environment and engage in gainful ventures other than resorting to prostitution, you know.
Cherish Sibote for Camnet News, Lusaka.
We take our second set of commercials. Coming next is international and sports news.
Your skin is the biggest muscle in your body. That's why we make sure that Oracle is #1 when it comes to taking care of your precious skin. Oracle Pure Petroleum Jelly and Glycerin soothes, moisturizes and keeps your skin perfect. Oracle Pure Petroleum Products for that perfect skin.
Welcome back. We now get into our international item. Ugandan opposition leader and former presidential candidate KIZZA BESIGYE has been jailed and charged with inciting violence for the second time in a month, his lawyer announced Thursday. A long-time critic of President Yoweri Museveni, KIZZA BESIGYE, 66, has recently led several protests against the rising cost of living in Uganda as well as the entire African continent as a result of the war in Ukraine. In another international news, Australia's newly elected government is facing a perfect storm with rising inflation, food shortages, higher interest rates, and now an energy crisis. Here's a roundup of international news.
A Ugandan veteran opposition figure and long-time opponent of President Yoweri Museveni was remanded to prison on Wednesday after he was charged with offences for leading protest against soaring consumer prices. 66-year-old KIZZA BESIGYE was detained on Tuesday as he led the protests in downtown Kampala, the capital, only days after he was freed from jail where he had spent nearly 2 weeks on similar charges. On Tuesday, he was charged with incitement to violence for his alleged role in galvanizing protest against high prices, which authorities say were held without permission. Chaos erupted in court when his supporters shouted "Shame on you" at the magistrate, who declined pleas from BESIGYE's lawyers to release their client on bail. The opposition figure has been calling for tax cuts to offset inflation, but President Museveni has refused relief, blaming high prices for items such as cooking oil, fuel and wheat on the war in Ukraine and the COVID-19 pandemic. BESIGYE has been detained dozens of times and lost 4 elections to President Museveni.
Kenya on Wednesday called for the deployment of a regional force to the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo as tensions between Kinshasa and Kigali reached new highs. President Uhuru Kenyatta, who is also the current chairman of the regional bloc, said a meeting of army commanders from member states planned for this Sunday should be used to finalize preparations for the East African Standby Force to deploy in eastern Congo. M23 rebels on Wednesday seized the border town of Bunagana and demanded new talks with Kinshasa. Congo accuses Rwanda of aiding the rebels, a charge Kigali denies. The two neighbors have traded accusations of border violations since the M23 made a comeback early this year after several years of quiet. The rebels, who are ethnic Tutsis, as Rwanda's president, have accused Congolese authorities of targeting their community for discrimination and dispossession. On Wednesday, demonstrators in Goma called on the international community to intervene. Some protesters tried to march to Congo's border with Rwanda.
This is one of Australia's busiest fruit and vegetable markets. It's normally a hive of activity, but after a series of extreme weather events, less fresh produce is being delivered to Sydney markets.
At the moment, the vegetable lines are really short in supply, mainly due to the fact that we had
Queensland had floods, 2 floods in about 3 or 4 weeks. Very cold weather, Arctic conditions down south in Victoria. That's caused all these short supplies.
Kentucky Fried Chicken has substituted lettuce with cabbage in its burgers. The floods combined with a labour shortage as a result of border closures have also pushed up retail costs.
When there's no supply, you have demand, and there's demand, prices have to go up because people want products.
It's not just a shortage of fresh produce. Australia has been plunged into an energy crisis, with the national market operator suspending market pricing to avoid power outages in up to 5 states. The war in Ukraine has led to a global gas shortage, prompting Australia to rely on its ageing coal-fired power stations, a quarter of which are currently offline. Despite being a major producer, 90% of the liquefied natural gas produced on the East Coast is exported to China, South Korea and Japan.
That actually means that there's only a little bit left, and the little bit that's left is sold on the international spot market. And of course, we are now having to purchase that back for domestic consumption at prices that have gone up, 80 times or more.
The energy regulator has intervened and set a price cap. But many families will still be struggling to heat their homes as Australia experiences a series of cold fronts.
It means people are dying because they don't put their heating on, and people are dying because they need to access healthcare but they can't afford to, and people are dying because their health is in such dire straits because of the fact that they can't afford to eat properly.
The gas crisis and food shortage are just 2 of a number of challenges facing the newly elected Labor government. With this in mind, they've agreed to introduce new cost of living measures in the October budget to deliver on election pledges on childcare, wages and medicine. Until then, the government's warned there's unlikely to be any immediate reprieve. Sarah Clark, Al Jazeera, Brisbane.
We now get into sports news. Zambia Rugby 7 ace captain Israel KALUMBA says his team is ready to participate in the forthcoming Commonwealth Games scheduled for July 2022. In an interview with Camnet Sports, KALUMBA notes that the team needs to continue training with one vision if they are to bring medals in the tournament. KALUMBA adds that all the team needs is proper communication whilst on the pitch, as this will guarantee victory.
The Zambia Rugby Sevens team has qualified for the 2022 Commonwealth Games after finishing 4th at the Rugby Africa Cup in Uganda. The 2022 Commonwealth Games will demonstrate the very best of the global Zambia to the world by showcasing the region's strength of being connected and accessible, to also bring about youth inclusivity and a focus on regeneration and rejuvenation. Camnet Sports was on the ground and discussed expectations with the Rugby Sevens captain Israel KALUMBA, who had this to say.
Like 2 weeks ago, we've been meeting from Monday and Wednesdays. I think for the look of the training, the way it's going, I think there is positive vibe in the team. We looking forward to compete against the teams we're going to match with. We need to work on our coordination from the previous games. I think we need to work on our coordination and encourage one another.
One of the 7 strikers also came on board and gave his view.
So much prepared for the Commonwealth Games. We've been pushing ourselves, and I think we'll come back with a good result.
What do you think the team should work on?
The team should work on the coordination and also stick to the system as well. From the last tournament that we played, the system has been coming up so well, and we are looking forward to getting better.
The Commonwealth Games is scheduled to open on July 28th, with the closing ceremony set for August 8, 2022. Blessings Chakwila, Camnet Sports, Lusaka.
Well, that sports item brings us to the end of Camnet TV main news. But before we go, here are the headlines once again. 22-year-old male MUMBWA resident accuses the police of shooting him during an illegal mining raid. Millers Association of Zambia impressed with the maize flour price. And LUSAKA runs out of kerosene as commodity price triples. In international news, Ugandan opposition leader KIZZA denied bail for leading inflation protest. And in sports, Zambia Rugby 7S captain Israel KALUMBA confident of winning medals at the Commonwealth Games. Before we go, our Camnet verse is coming from the book of Galatians 5 verse 24 to 25, and it reads, "Now those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passion and desires. Since we live by the Spirit, we must also follow the Spirit." Thank you for watching. I am Precious Mzeya Sakaleji. Pleasant viewing.